Well, now I want to turn to the next presenter, which is Dennis Brennan. And Dennis's segment is sponsored by a new company that, frankly, I'm not familiar with. Why? Because I'm a trolley modeler, and this person makes things that I think are absolutely outstanding. They're all made in the U.S. I've talked to Alan, and I was really impressed with his company, with his philosophy, and what he's accomplishing. And as soon as we can get the video that we're working on for him right now, we'll show that next week. But we do have his website up here. We do have the logo of his company. And I want to thank so much Alan Zamoski, who owns the Millhouse River Studio, for sponsoring this high rail segment of our show with the host, Dennis Brennan. And with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Dennis. Welcome.
Thank you, Jim. And I also want to thank Al Zamorsky from Millhouse River Studios for sponsoring this show. Al's a buddy of mine. He's also a high railer. And he jumped right in and said, yes, let's do it. So what I hope to do with these segments over the coming months is to talk about modeling, because that's what high rail is all about. The only difference between what I'm doing as a high railer and what another modeler in a different scale is doing is the fact that I have 3-rail track, and I'm using, I may be using different couplers. But as far as it goes, everything I do is scale. I'm using scale cars. And what is high rail? Well, high rail is for those guys who started with toy trains and decided they wanted to go a little bit further. And by that, I mean, when you get tired of just running around on a flat plywood tabletop and you start to add scenery and you start to want to make it look more real, well, you've walked into the high rail, and how far you go into it, that's up to you. But when you get to what I'm doing, and a lot of us are doing now, there's no difference between what we do and what other modelers are doing in different scales. And the point is, it doesn't matter if you're in O scale or N scale or HO. You're going to have people who do really exquisite modeling and some who just like to set up something and let it run. I mean, it happens. Just because you're in another scale doesn't mean that you're a modeler. So with that said, what I would like to talk about today is I'm going to introduce you to kit bashing, which is something that I love to do. And over the next few shows, I'm going to talk about various types of kit bashing and how you can, the things you can do with simple little things like just painting. With that said, let's go right here to, I'm going to share the screen. Let's see. All right. And we're going to look at this right here. Can everybody see that all right?
Yes.
All right. This is basically a Plasticville switch tower. Can you imagine that? It's Plasticville. Well, what did I do here? All I did was add a few details and some paint. I mean, it's that simple. And I would put that up against any model. I wrote an article about that for Classic Toy Trains. I added, I added a little board along the side of the steps, and I added some support for this. And basically, I painted it. That's it. And I added some glass to the inside, and I lit it up and put it in a realistic setting. And that's as good as any other kit you're going to find. And that's a simple model. This one, this is a Walthers. Well, it was Walthers. It's now Atlas O. It was like Melissa's Deli, or I don't know, one of those buildings. And all I did was paint and change it from shiny plastic into a real scale looking brick building. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that there are two different kinds of brick. One is called face brick, which is used on the front of a building or a building that faces a street. And another is just basically the basic utilitarian brick, which they use on the sides of buildings that are not facing the street. So you'll find them on the sides, between buildings, and in the back. And we'll get into that a lot more later when I show you how to do that in another episode. Here is simple Plasticville hobo shacks. All I did was add a little paint and freed up some of the boards that were molded in, so that they're now sticking out. And it's just basically paint and put it in a realistic setting. It doesn't get any simpler than that. So kit bashing, well, that's not really a kit bash. It is what I call a kit enhancement. Now here is an actual kit bash of a Plasticville diner. Simple little Plasticville diner. I used 2 kits to make it wider, which meant I also had to make the roof wider. And then I just, I added all additional details to bring out what's already there. I changed the door a little bit. I actually filled in the Plasticville diner that was on here, and I made my own logo, Dots Diner. And then I added these little pieces of plastic to enhance the three-dimensionality of it, and then painted it. It's that simple. Here's another one, and we'll talk about this too. And I think we're going to talk about that in January, February. This is a Plasticville suburban station. And I added, I toned down the white plastic stucco with just some spackle. I painted it. I cut out the windows and added Grant Line windows. I switched these doors. This really was 2 doors. One was here and one was in the back of the building. And I put those together and took the door in the back of the building and took the door that was here, which was, there were 2 of these. I split that in half and put one here and one here. And then I just covered the dock with coffee stirrer strips. And I added some screening here, left off a few boards, and we got a building I'd put up against any O-scale kit. Here is a couple kit bashes that I did. This is from a Plasticville airplane hangar, believe it or not. And this is what I call basically a scratch bash, because I used these walls from the building, and then I scratch built the other walls that you can't see in this photo, but we will cover this in another episode. And this one here, this was this Lionel electrical powerhouse buildings. I used 5 different kits to make this kit bash here, Carp Machinery. And I used some molding, and we'll talk about how I kept the windows looking like they were. Anyway, that is all there is to that one. And here is another kit bash that I use. These are 2 IHC row house kits. They had pointy roofs, and you'll see them in the next photo. They were storefronts kits, and I converted that into a kind of a building that used to be across the street from where I lived when I was a kid. Now these are the 3 buildings. Those are the IHC kits, and we'll see them down below too. this building here is 3 different kits. Again, this was a Walthers kit, and these were Walthers kits. They're now Atlas O, and I just joined them together and made like a block long building. And this is the back side of that building right here. And these are the 3 IHC buildings. And what I did with them is I cut the roof down on top so that I could make it look like this was a porch extension. And I made 3 different versions of it. One, they had porches that were open, just like over here, but they decided to cover them up and enclose them. And this one has 3 different porches too, but there's different colors that I used on each building, and you often see that in the neighborhood. So those are just some simple ideas that you can do. I don't have anything more to say about kit bashing. I will, if you guys want to come back to me, we can do that. And we can, if Jim will tell me how much time I got left, I'll wrap it up. If you need time, we can wrap this up, and I'll see you next month with high rail modeling.
Why don't we do that, Dennis? Because we are so packed tonight. I guess the most important thing that I get out of this, and that I hope everybody gets out of this, when you look at a scene like it's on the screen right now, that could be 2 rail or 3 rail. If you don't see the number of rails there, if you don't pay any attention to that, if you just look at that modeling, and keep in mind, that's what this show is all about. I don't care if it's 2 rail or 3 rail. If a person can do that creativity and bring that kind of a picture of art with a model railroad, that's the kind of person that this show should appeal to. This show should appeal to people who want to achieve that level of market modeling excellence. I don't care what kind of track they run on. So Dennis, thanks so much for sharing this with us tonight, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And thank everybody for tuning in. And if you have any questions, concerns, problems, or suggestions, email me at dennis@brennansmodelrr.com. You can go to my website, and my phone number is there, and I'll be glad to talk to you if you want.
And Dennis, if you could put that information in the chat function when you get a chance, I'd appreciate it so everybody can have it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.